Hi, it's Hope and welcome to the video. This is going to be my July mid-month wrap up and all of that. This is going to be kind of long because I've read a lot of books so far because I took place in Becca's Bookopoly readathon, which I'll have my reading blog up. I don't know which side it's on, but first we have Serpent Dove by Shelby Mahurin, and this is a book I gave 5 stars. I loved it, and this story is about a girl named Lou who is a witch who left her coven. I can't remember exactly what they're called, but they're left her coven 2 years prior, fled to the city, and is living off the streets as a thief. But when she gets intertwined with this guy named Reed, who is a witch hunter, well, they end up having a They end up needing to have an arranged marriage to save both of their reputations. And this book goes from enemies to lovers. It is full of just so many good things, and every good thing, if you've ever heard anything good about this book, it is 100% true. I loved Lou. She is now definitely up there on some of my favorite characters. I love all of her sassy and snarky comments, and I loved where it ended. So I'm so excited for Blood and Honey, which comes out September 1st, I believe. Yes, I think that is correct. So that was the first book I read this month. Next is The Summer of '98 by Tay Marley, and this is about Ellie and Leroy and how they meet at this party, hook up, and then the relationship goes from there. And this is set in 1998, so it's like a throwback book, and it was just so good. The romance was just top tier. I loved it. The way they just truly cared for each other. And the way that, if you've read the sequel to it, which is the QB Bad Boy in Me, which I read last month, you know kind of where those characters end up, because this is like a prequel to that. But yeah, I gave this 4 stars. I don't remember if I mentioned that. I'm not sure. When in doubt, I forget to mention things like that. Next, we have The Raven Boys by Maggie Steifvater, and this is about a girl named Blue whose mother is a psychic type person, and every year on this day there is something where it's like her mother and her aunt can see the spirits of dead people that are going to die in the next year, and Blue ends up seeing this boy named Gainsey. I think that's how you pronounce his name. And since Blue is not a seer, that means that she either killed him or he's her true love. And Gainsey is a part of this group of boys called the Raven Boys that are kind of on this mission to find this mythical thing. I don't even remember how to explain this, but their paths cross and we go from there. I don't really know how to explain it, but I just really enjoyed it. I gave this a 4 star. I liked it, but I didn't love it. but I am excited to continue with the series. I loved the Raven Boys and the way their like friendship is like just, it's so solid. I love it when friendships are solid to the point that they're almost family. And that is one thing that I will always love in books. That is like one trope that I love. And next we have Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, and this was a reread for me. I also went ahead and tabbed the book, which took me way too long to do. But this is about 6 people who go on this heist to save this person from a prison because that person's invention will be used for harm, and they are trying to save that person so that they can make a bunch of money that they're promised from saving this person and all of that. And I love this book because all of the characters are like morally gray. So like, yeah, we're breaking into this prison to save this person just for the money. Not to actually save this person, but because we need the money. And I just love all of these characters. I love one of our main characters, Kaz, is one of my favorite literary characters of all time. Like, definitely in my top probably 10 for sure. And the sequel to this is in one of my top 10 books of all time. But yeah, I don't know what more to say without spoiling it, because I will start talking about this and spend the next 10 minutes talking about this and spoiling everything about this. So, next we have Under Shifting Stars by Alexandra Latos, and this book does not come out until September 29th, but I got an arc of it, and this I gave 5 stars. This is about twin sisters, Audrey and Claire, and this book starts 10 months after their brother's death. And I'll start off with kind of describing Audrey. Audrey is ADHD and autistic and goes to this special school, but she does not like it there. She wants to be where her sister is because their relationship is so strained ever since their brother's death. And then we have Claire, who is at this public school with these fake friends, and she, after she starts being fascinated by a non-binary person at their school, starts kind of questioning, like Claire starts questioning her own sexuality after that and other things that led up to that moment. And this is just such a fun read. This was such a good read it's a good read to see the sibling bond, because they were twins, they were close as can be, and then they just slowly drifted apart, and it's seeing them come back together and realize that I need you in my life as my best friend, not just as my sibling because you're supposed to be, because they're twins, but they were born on 2 different days and under 2 different star signs. So one was born one day close to midnight, and then the other was born after midnight the next day. So like their relationship is strained, and it's them growing as individuals, and then their relationship as siblings growing stronger. And this book also took place in Canada, which I didn't realize until I started reading. And then I was like, oh, this takes place in Calgary, Alberta, a place that I've been before. Like, it's the first book that I've ever read that has had a place, like, that takes place in a place that I've been to. Like, yes, I was like 6 years old when I went, but still so cool. Next, we have A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab, and this I gave 4 stars. And this takes place in a universe where there are like 4 Londons, and those 4 Londons are in these like different separate worlds, and you need to have this type of magic. You need to have magic to get into each London, and our main character Kel has this magic to go to these different places. And the 4 different types of Londons are, we have Red London, which is, I don't know how to explain this, but we have Red London, White London, Grey London, and Black London. Black London is the bad one. White London is like the okay. Grey London is the one closest to our own. And then Red London is full of like little magic type things and all that. And I don't really know how else to describe this without spoiling it, but we follow Kel doing this task that he's set to do, and this task going wrong when something that he's supposed to take somewhere gets stolen by our other like main character, Layla, and Kel has to retrieve it, and then those two end up working together because Layla wants to get out of her London and travel, and even though that's not supposed to happen and all that, I'm probably spoiling stuff, but one thing about this book that I didn't know is that this book is technically considered adult, even though it feels YA. I did not know this when I picked it up, and then I found it after. I was like, wait, what? But apparently, this is by V.E. Schwab. V.E. Schwab is Victoria Schwab's, like, adult, like, persona, pseudonym type thing. Which I didn't know. Like, I didn't know that anything under V.E. Schwab is adult, which is weird. But this totally has nothing really to do with that book, but I thought that's something that I was like, okay. Next we have Shatter Me by Tahereh Mafi, and this I gave 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. This is about a girl named Juliet whose touch is lethal, and she ends up being not recruited, but like forced to work for the Reestablishment, which is like a military that's trying to take over basically the rest of the country after a bunch of stuff happens. And I don't really know how else to describe this without spoiling it, but this book I've been wanting to read for so long, and I finally read it, and I'm sitting here like, I have, I think, 5 or 6 other books that I have to finish on my TBR. I think 5 books on my TBR that I have to finish. And then I'm literally picking up the rest of the series the rest of this month, and any books from the series that I can't fit in this month, I'm fitting in next month. Like, I want to read more of this. I loved it so much. I flew through it. I read it I read the first 30 pages, and then like the next day I read the rest of the book. So I read this is like over 300 pages. I basically read it in like 24 hours. I read this for the Becca's Bookopoly readathon, which again will be linked somewhere. But yeah. Next we have We Were Liars by E. Lockhart, and this is a mystery thriller type book where we follow our main character Cadence, who goes to whose family owns this island, and every summer she spends this summer on the island with her family. But after something happens with her 15, she calls it summer 15, or 15th, like summer 15, she forgets what happens that summer, and then 2 years later it's her coming back and remembering that summer, and it's just such a huge thing because once you find out the plot twist or something along the lines of that, it questions everything you've read and has made you look at every single scene differently. So yeah, it is such a good read. I gave this 4 stars. I liked it, but I didn't love it because I was just so confused once that plot drop happened, I literally had to reread the chapter and be like, what the hell just happened? So it is an intense read that I would recommend anyone, even if you don't like thrillers. Like, I've only read one other thriller, which was only my second thriller, so yeah. And next we have Beneath the Sugar Sky by Seanan McGuire, and this is the third book in the Wayward Children series. So this one I kind of can explain, but in this series we have this school for these kids that went through these doorways that take you into different realms, and then sometimes kids return and they have to go to the school to kind of re-put themselves back into society or find a way back into their doorways. And when a girl falls into the pond and claims that she is the daughter of a dead student, it sends us on a kind of trip to try and revive that student that died, so that her daughter doesn't end up disappearing, if that makes any sense. This entire series is kind of hard to describe because every book doesn't essentially connect to the last one, but they all connect in some way. But I gave this a 4-star. I really enjoyed it. That's all I really can say. Next we have Illuminae by Amie Kauffman and J. Kristoff, and this book I unfortunately DNF'd after 66 pages. I can't even explain this book really. It is like this sci-fi where after this planet gets wrecked, these characters are on these spaceships, and the book is entirely told through interviews and logs and transcripts and all of that, which originally I thought I was going to like, but I just didn't. I'm a person, I always need to feel connected to the characters, and I just couldn't get connected to these characters at all. I just felt so disconnected from them, and it just felt like it didn't feel like a book that I liked. I tried to push through it, but within the first 20 pages I was like, I'm not sure, but then once I got to 60 pages I was like, you know what, I don't like this. Why am I pushing myself through this? Someday in the future I might pick up the audiobook, but right now I'm not really that. If I ever get into audiobooks, I will 100% pick this up. I also might just pick up the audiobook and try it, because I've heard that if you struggle with reading it, the audiobook might help, because this is such a beloved series by so many people that I'm like, well, why don't I like it? And yes, not everyone has to like the same book, but I just feel like the premise was so good, but I just didn't end up liking it. And then we have Cursed by Thomas Wheeler, and this was also a DNF. I read 83 pages until I just DNF'd, and this is meant to be a King Arthur and Merlin retelling with this girl. I don't really know, but it just didn't interest me as much as I thought I was going to be interested. I read a chunk of it one night and I was like, okay, this is okay, maybe it'll get better. But then I started reading it and I didn't feel connected with any of the characters, and usually within 80 pages you feel like you start to like at least one character or one aspect of the book. But I was just like, the only reason I'm reading this is so that I can watch the show when it comes out. So I think I'm just gonna watch the show, and then if the show is really, really, really good, I might push myself through the book again, but I just didn't want to force myself to read anything because I have this tendency to, even if I don't 100% like a book, I will still continue with it, and that's why I've had, like, I don't do that a lot, but, like, I do that sometimes where I'm just like, ugh, this book could have been better, and, like, I wasted the time reading this, and both Illuminae and Cursed were books that I felt like if I would have pushed through, I would have just been wasting my own time, so I did both of them. And then, finally, for the mid-month wrap-up, we have Saga, Volume 3 by Brian K. Vaughan, and this series is about two people from the opposite sides of a galactic war who come together, fall in love, get married, and have a baby, and then are, like, hunted for that because they're from opposite sides of the galactic war. And that's really all I can say, really, but it's just this like quick pace graphic novel that has really good art style, and that just is like, you never know what's gonna happen, and these I usually read in one sitting. Like, I've read all three of them so far in one sitting, but I just love this series because it's just so good. Like, I don't know why. I don't even know how to explain why I like it, but just, like, I like the characters, I like the plot, I like the worlds we go to, and the different, like, cultures, I guess. But, yeah, those were the, I don't even know the number, honestly, like, 13 books, I think it is, that I read within the first 15 days of the month. Well, 2 were DNFs. The first, like, 11 books, but 13, because I did read some of those, if you want to be all rah-da-da-da-da. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see what I end up reading for the rest of the month, I will be posting a overall wrap-up and stats for the month at the end of the month. I don't know what day yet. Or you can follow my Instagram to see basically almost daily uploads from what I read. Like, once I finish a book that day or the very next day, I post, like, the photo of the book and then a little sentence of what I thought, like what stars I gave it, so all that. Or if you want to follow my Twitter just to see what I am doing, you can do that. I feel very bad for promoting my other social media, but screw it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye!